Right, there will be a slight delay in the stream, so just give it a few seconds anyway. But today we're going to look at how to use certain operators in JavaScript. So what I wanted to look at first was the double equals versus the triple equals, and then also briefly look at the AND operators and the OR operators, right? So the logical operators there. What does double equals and triple equals do? What do they both do? So Faraj is saying triple equals is type checking. Yeah, so they're both known as types of comparison operators, right? So they're comparing one thing with another. So they compare whatever's in front of it with whatever's comes after it, yeah? So if I compared the string, hello, double equals, and then with a capital H, for example, would that be true or false?
False.
Oh, we've got differing opinion. So most people are saying false, right? So if I take off the comment, we can clearly see that that's false. How would we make it equal? Yep. So if we put it all lowercase, then of course that would be true. Would it still be true with triple equals?
Yes.
Uh-huh. How about if we used some numbers instead? So if we had, I don't know why, but the number 16 equal to, so the other way around, so the string 16 equal to the number 16. True or false like that?
False.
Who said true? Can you convince us why it's true?
Because JavaScript is forgiving. It realized it does a calculation that this is string, but it will take a number.
So you're saying JavaScript is forgiving, it converts that string into a number.
That's what
Okay, most other people are saying false, right?
Yes.
Someone convince me why it's false.
Because
it is data type.
Because it's a different data type, so why does that matter in this case? Because we've got a triple equals, yes, so that would be false. Alright, how about if I removed one of these equals?
it will be true.
Then it would be true, Ahmed, yeah? So it's forgiving, if you like, when we use a double equals, but not when we're using that really strict equality operator. We're checking for both the value being the same and the data type being the same when we use triple equals, yeah? So that's why, even though you could argue that the value is the same, they're both 16, right, stored inside either a string or a number, but the data type is different, yeah? One is a string and one is a number, so they are automatically going to be false. Doesn't matter whether the numbers inside are the same or not. With the strict equality, because they're different data types, they are going to be false. Are there any limitations that you can think of the double equals and the triple equals? Does it work on all data types? So far we've tested strings and numbers, which I think Aeneas briefly touched on. What sort of data types are those?
Primitive.
Primitive, nice, well remembered. So primitive data types are the really simple data types, right, in JavaScript. How about non-primitives? What's an example of a non-primitive or a more complex data type? An object or an array. So I'm going to do an array for now. So if I made both of these arrays have the same thing inside, let's say the string 16, are they going to be equal or not?
I think so.
So they're both the same data type, right? They're both arrays. They both contain the same values inside.
I think it's true.
Kelly's looking at me like, I want to say something different. Most people are saying true. Does anyone disagree? Kelly disagrees. Why? Can you explain?
I don't know exactly why, but I think the lists are different, or like what you're declaring it in is different.
So Kelly's saying this sort of outer container, this list is different to this list for some reason, right?
But because it's something typed in a different way, or because they are different?
I have no clue.
I'll explain in a second. Yes, so most people are going that it's probably true, right? They look identical to me, to a human. They look identical. However, it's false. And say again. Yeah, fantastic. We can tell he's done a bit of computer science before, right? So, Keyvon's saying they're actually stored as separate objects in memory, yeah, and it's comparing them not just by the value that they're pointing to, but it's comparing them to the actual memory location. Yeah, so primitives, they're, see if I got a diagram, right?
But if we just
You
put-
don't think I'm broadcasting still?
Yeah, you are. Okay, definitely I'm interested.
Okay, thank you for checking, but it seems like we are. Just refresh if you can't get it for us. Yeah? Let's see. Nice. That actually come up with the image that I wanted. How do we full screen it on this one? Okay. So it all comes down, I guess, really to not just how we pass values, but how we store them. This is slightly different, but it's good enough, I think, right? So, yeah, when we are comparing our values here with primitives, then it's literally just a value, right? It's a value that's stored in a memory location, and that memory location does not change. Whereas when we are creating an object, then they're two set. This isn't a great example actually by the image. It's something slightly different. But with the object, then we are storing it. Where's my code gone? We are storing it in a totally separate object. So they're creating a new location in memory, and therefore those objects or those arrays are not equal because they're stored in a different place in memory. Yeah, so it's comparing the memory address as well as the value inside there. How about with double equals? Is it less strict? Would that actually be true? You're saying it's not performing any check-in, but what was it checking before? It was checking the
Just
type, right? So it's still false. Yeah? So we can't use either double equals or triple equals to compare any complex data types. Yeah, so that's quite a big limitation of it. So just be aware of that. Even empty object equals empty object is still false, right? It doesn't even matter what you put inside of it. They're two completely distinct, separate objects in terms of JavaScript. They are not the same thing.
So it's basically for strings or numbers.
So it's basically for primitives only that we can compare. Yep. If you did something like that, oops, wrong way around. And then I do, yeah, but then I'm going to compare A and B. Would that be equal or not?
No.
I think yes.
Well, you
True.
assign A to B if we can do the same number.
So A was an empty object, then we've said B is just equal to A.
I think it's true in this case.
Oh, I think I need to actually hit return this time. Yes, so that is actually true in this case. So can you see the difference? We have only created one object in memory. We've then just aliased or referenced B equal to that same object
Oh.
in memory. We have not created two separate, I can't go back up, can I, because it's in the terminal. We haven't created two separate objects like that. If I did that, then, oops, then identify A as origin declare. Yeah, okay, so I've got a sort of, does that work, or is it still stored in memory in Chrome? Let's see. Really? That's annoying, right?
Just change A to C and D.
What's that, sorry?
Just change it.
Yeah, we could change it to C and D. That would refresh the page might work. Where is my page? That one. Let's see. Yeah, refresh the page works. Yeah, so when we create two separate objects, we've created two different objects in memory, then they're not equal. When we just point a variable to a value, then that is true. Yeah. So just beware of those limitations, right? Of double equals and triple equals. And should we ever even use double equals? No. Don't use double equals, yeah? According to the grandfather of JavaScript, right, Douglas Crockford, then double equals are evil. Please never use them.
And do they exist because we didn't have triple equals before or something like that? Or?
Yeah, good question. I don't know whether the operators came at the same time. I thought they did. I didn't think double equals came before triple equals. But I could be wrong on that, yeah. But for now, just, yeah, don't use double equals at all. Alright. I don't want to go too deep into that because we'll cover it a bit more later if necessary, but that's the main takeaway points, right? Just use triple equals to compare primitives, or make sure you're being very careful with how you compare your more complex values. How about these other two operators I wanted to talk about? So we wanted to talk about both the OR operator, which is your double pipe in JavaScript, and the AND operator. So what do these two things return? Let's say again we've got the string hello or the number 0. When we put an OR operator in there, what does that do? Any ideas?
It compares one other. If either this is true or that one is true.
So if either the left is true or the right is true, you're saying, Ahmed. So what will it return? Will it return true or false? Or
If either of them is true, it will return true.
if any of them is true, it will return true. Okay. Any other options?
If left or right or both is true.
If left or right or both is true, then what does it return? True, you say? Yep. Okay. Anyone else? So everyone thinks this or this will turn into one thing. We'll see it in a second when I uncomment it. Yeah.
I think just like this will not give neither true or false.
What do you think it will give if it doesn't give neither true or false?
No, because you're not yet asking any type of equality.
Yeah, we are. What the OR operator does is it will return two expressions and it will take two expressions do some sort of operation on them. This is just an OR operator, so it operates on two expressions, and it will return a single expression.
Okay.
We'll see what that value is in a second. So we talked about if one of them is true or can be coerced to true, it will return true. So what are the non-true or non-truthy values in JavaScript? There are only 6 of them. If they're both are false, so false is a value, right, itself. So can we use false-y rather than false, yeah? We'll say a value is false-y rather than false, yeah? Because the only thing that's false is the value false, yeah? Just to make that clear distinction, right? So one of the false-y values is false, definitely. What are the other 5? 0, yeah, the number 0, correct. Empty what? Empty string, cool. Anything else? Null, was that? Yeah? Yeah. Undefined. One more. N-A-N, not a number. Fantastic. Yeah, you got all 6 of those. So just to check your logic, if that was undefined or 0, what would it now return? True? How? You've just told me that all of these are falsy values. Yeah? So you're saying it would return false, right? If
Undefined or 0.
yeah?
It should be false, right? Undefined is true, and 0 is true. I mean, both of them are false, it should be false, right?
Okay. Let's go back to the original example. We had hello. I just wanted to clarify what the falsy values were, right? Because they're important when using the OR and the AND operator. So we had hello or 0, and I think everyone said it will return true. Why? Because hello is a truthy value, right? That's what you're saying. You're all wrong. It will return hello. It doesn't return true or false.
I said it will return true or false.
Yeah, but you couldn't give me what it would return, right? So
No.
you're the closest, Seb. I'll give you that, right? So these and the OR operators do not return true or false. Right? Everyone seems to think they do. I don't know where this myth come from. They return.
Because the way you asked, the question was expected true or false.
No, I didn't say that I did. I think I was pretty careful with how I worded the question, but I'll look back on it, and if I...
We'll check the video up.
Yeah, you can check the video. I took your suggestions, and you said you think it will return true. Yeah, but please note that and OR operators do not return true or false. Look at that one. Look, I used and. It doesn't return false. It returns 0. Yeah? So it will return one of the values.
Why the other one returns 0 and
Let's do OR first, and then we'll go on to and. All right, Bilal? So OR returns the first truthy value, which in this case is hello. So even if this second one was also truthy, that's truthy, right? Empty array is still truthy. It wasn't in our list. Not convinced? I'll swap them around. Empty array. Yeah? So empty array is truthy. The OR operator returns the first truthy value. Yeah, so that's falsy. Empty string, so it returns the first truthy value. And that was my next question. What if both are falsy? What gets returned then?
Undefined.
Nothing.
Undefined goes Seb. Nothing goes Ahmed. So nothing. Usually we get something, right? Whether it's undefined or something else. But
Undefined.
okay, you're saying undefined. Anyone else? Any other options? Undefined. Okay, I put a 0 in. You're all wrong again. So it returns the last falsy value. Well, it's just going to be a double quote then, of course, right? Because I said it returns one of the values, so it's going to be a double quote then. Right? The important thing is, does it return?
The last one.
So if both are falsy, we return the last falsy.
Yes. If both are falsy, it returns the last falsy value. This is for the OR operator, right? The two pipes.
And if both are true, it returns.
If both are true, it returns the first true. Yeah? It's a simple thing to remember, but for some reason everyone seems to learn it initially wrong. I don't know why. I think probably because the examples you get to begin with are always like this, right? True or false. So then people always think it returns true or false. And it doesn't. Yeah, it returns, in this case, the truthy or the falsy value, right? The first truthy or the last falsy value in the case of OR.
The 6 falsy value that you've mentioned,
Yep.
anything other than that is always true.
Yep, anything other than those 6 we've mentioned is always truthy. So learn your 6 falsy values, learn the rules, right? OR operator, first truthy, last falsy. For the AND, it's just the opposite of that. So the AND operator returns the last truthy or the first falsy. Fantastic. Yeah?
And on the end, if you have one falsy and one truthy, it returns the falsy.
So so on the AND, it will return the first falsy. So if one of them is falsy, alright, so if you had true to begin with, right? So if you had a truthy value to begin with, yeah? And then a falsy value, it will always return the falsy value. Right, so AND will always return the falsy value, but it's the first falsy value as well. Or it will return the last truthy value. So if I have another truthy string, it's just going to return the last truthy value. Yeah.
I think it's because the OR, as soon as it finds something true, it outputs it, and the AND
Yep.
is still looking for a false one.
Yep, so that's another way of looking at it. So you can say that as soon as the OR operator finds something truthy, it just outputs that, right? No matter how many times you've got, I should really start putting numbers, right? No matter how many times you've got these falsy values, it will always just output the first one and ignore all this stuff. Whereas with the AND operator, it keeps going. Oops, wrong one.
Until it finds a falsy.
Until it finds a falsy, or if it doesn't find a falsy, it just returns the last truthy. So has everyone written down those 2 rules if they wanted to? Yeah?
So if both values are false, then AND operator will return the last true statement.
Nope. How does that work? If they're all false, how can it return a truthy statement?
It will return the first.
So if they're all false, what does it return?
The first
The
one.
first false statement.
Nope. That's not what I said, I don't think.
Because you've used AND.
Yeah, that is what I said. Sorry, yeah, the first falsy you said, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah, as soon as AND hits a falsy value, it returns that. So it's only when you've got something truthy that it continues searching. Continues looping through, not looping, but continues examining the next expression. There will be a board challenge on this probably next week to consolidate and or operators, because they're very important and they're used a lot for shortcuts in React, for displaying things or not displaying things based on whether the components are truthy or falsy. Yeah, if something is undefined or not found, then it won't get displayed.
Is it that important?
Is that important? Ahmed's like, I was going to skip learning this bit because it just confuses me. No, learn it. Yeah? Okay. Any questions on and or ors, or shall we jump over to the React platform and have a look at a bit of preparation for this afternoon?
The latter.
The latter? Awesome. Ed's still there, good stuff. Alright, do you want to do a bit of beginner first and then we'll jump into some intermediate? Loop?
Yeah,
The last question of Loop.
I want the last question on the third one.
Okay, then you speak. If you speak for me, that's fine.
Nope, I'm gonna have to. That's the maximum zoom I can get today. Apologies for that. So, the main bit we're looking at anyway is interpreting this left-hand side. Yeah. So you'll probably find a lot of things initially set to variables. Yeah, const actors. You know what that is. We've done let, var, and const. So we've assigned the result of calling shallow on this component to the variable actors. Yeah? So what does this component have?
The list of names. An array, that's an array.
Yep, so the list of names is definitely an array. And what is names itself? An object? No. Yeah, nice. So it's a prop. Yeah, in React speak it's a prop. This is how we pass props into our components. Yeah, just setting them the same way as a HTML property or a HTML attribute. Names equals, and then the value we want it to equal. It's only in curly braces because we want it to be a bit of JavaScript. So JavaScript array, yeah? Okay, and then you'll often find this method down here, the find method, and that's being called on our actors variable. Now what the find method does in testing syntax is different from the find method that you're used to in JavaScript, right? So this find method is searching the whole of your component for a P. And what's a P? A P is a paragraph tag, yeah? So that's what this line's doing. It's searching all of your component, your whole component, for a paragraph tag. And I think it will return a node list, but I'm not too sure. Maybe it will just return an array. I would have to look at the documentation. Yep, so shallow is just a method to render our component. Yeah, it's a method that belongs to the enzyme test suite to render components. So if you wanted to know a bit more about it, then enzyme shallow. So Enzyme's a test suite designed by Airbnb. And you can see probably here that these tests look quite similar to what we've just been looking at. Yeah, we're describing our test, giving it a name, assigning a variable to the shallow rendering of our component, and then we, sorry, you can't see that very well, can you? And then we call the find method on our component to find something inside of that component. Then this allows us to test these elements that we found. Yeah, now lets us test foo, or let's just test something else. So it's just a way of rendering our component inside of our test. That's all it is, Bilal. Yeah. And there are other methods to render it, but shallow just means a shallow render. We're not rendering nested components, just one level deep. Yeah, so everything is you can see on that screen is what you've got access to essentially, right? Rather than there being components that are hidden elsewhere in the application. Alright. Can anyone then explain this next line to me? Expect paragraphs to have length 3. What do you think that means?
Three elements or others.
Simple as that, right? We expect there to be 3 paragraphs inside of our component. Yeah? To have length 3. And then we've got these next ones. Paragraph at 0 dot text to equal something. So what does that mean?
The first one should be equal Arnold.
So our first paragraph should equal Arnold. So where does that Arnold go? Index 0. But what does that mean?
Text inside a paragraph should be that.
Yeah, the text inside the paragraph. So what does that mean? Do I have to write another thing called text? And then no? No, exactly, right. So anything that we type inside of here becomes text. Yeah, in HTML. So where you see this dot text method, that's what it's doing. It's finding the text inside of your paragraph, yeah, or inside of your element. You've selected the first p tag at index 0, and then you're looking for the text inside of it. So what do? Do we just type Arnold? Nope. How do we get the correct names inside? Props.name. Agree? Disagree?
Disagree. Why don't we put curly braces?
Why don't we put curly braces? Sure, I can put curly braces because it's JavaScript, right? We don't want to print prop.name.
Remove the prop.
Someone said player. Where did you get player from?
Sorry. We need to remove the props.
Why do we need to move the props?
I can see the props of the
Yeah, look, there's only one prop, and that's called names. Yeah? And then we're mapping over the array using the JavaScript map method. We take each name in the list and we create a p tag with each element in the list inside of it. Do I need to do anything else? You're quite right. I definitely don't need the semicolon because I'm inside of the JavaScript.
I think that's fine. All we needed that was that name should work. Even though we're going to get some error.
So I'm even not too bothered on this at the moment, right? What I'm bothered about is, do you understand how we got to that based on the syntax on the left-hand side, yeah? Could you explain that, yeah? We've assigned the rendering of the component into the actors variable, which lets us test on it. Then we can call methods like find to search our whole component for certain things, whether it be p tags, h1 tags, class name. How would I search for a class name inside there or a class inside there? A HTML class. Yeah, dot the name of the class. And how about searching for an ID? Nope, you don't type ID. So if I search for an ID called film star or actor, if I search for an ID called actor, how would I do it? With a hash, yeah. So I'd still need to call the find method on actors, right? I'd need to do actors.find, This is inside my test syntax, by the way, right? Not here as the answer. But I would then need to look for definitely a string, and it would have to be hash actor. Yeah. So that's how I'd search for an ID of actor. Imagine that had ID equals actor inside, right? It probably wouldn't let you do that because you're creating 3 IDs, but you get the idea, right? If it was a class name, it has a dot, and it would at least allow me to do that.
I tried to change the P into something else, like text or info or div.
Okay.
It didn't work.
If you try to change the P into something different, why won't it work?
Because you are breaking this.
Because we've broken that line of the test. Yeah, it can no longer find our paragraph tags because we haven't created any. So all of these tests will also fail because the paragraphs don't have length 3, we can't find any, they have no text inside, yeah? So that's why it breaks.
I was curious to find out what happened and we go, yeah, right, that's great.
So given is what's given.
Yep, given is set up for you.
When is the parameters?
When is, yeah, given's like the information. When is the scenario that we're considering in this case? Yeah, and then our expectations, our actual tests, our assertions, yeah? So if we run that, hopefully, all good. Missing key prop, yeah. So again, if we're iterating over something, we should add a key to each paragraph. And in the absence of a really unique key, I could just use name again, right? And it wouldn't complain anymore.
It doesn't matter that you use name in different.
It's not ideal, right? In case we had multiple people called Arnold or something like that, but if it come from a database, you'd have a unique key that you could use, I guess, or something else, yeah. Could even generate one. Oops, number 5 was requested, yeah? So how is this different? It's not much different, right? I think most of it's been set up for you. So someone else explain it to me then. What's been set up for us? Anyone? An array called teams, yeah, but how has that got into our function over here? By using
The function called starting grid. No, properties.
yeah. So usually we're given a component, right? In all these tests, it's React training, so we're given a component. So first we're given the starting grid component. Teams is a what?
Props.
Prop. Yep, it's a prop that's given to our components. That will be attached to the props object in here, and you can see that we're accessing it via props.teams, yeah? So that will give us our array of information there. Yeah, we've assigned it to a variable so that we can test it. But yeah, over here it reverses the order so that we no longer have Ferrari, McLaren and Williams. We have Williams, McLaren and Ferrari, right, in that order, which is what we want down here. Then also we create another variable, right? This scenario we're finding position. Have we got position anywhere? It looks like that's been given for us as well, yeah? So that will also be fine. So then we just need to make sure that we get 3 positions, which we should do if we use map, because we had an array of 3 items. And then we need some text inside of them to equal that.
Teams.
So we need the text to equal number dot
You do index
space.
dot, curly brace index dot.
So this is Jack's suggestion. We can do a curly brace. Sorry, named and shamed, Jack. Hopefully not shamed. So you said index,
Yep, and then dot after the curly brace.
dot after the curly brace. Okay, yeah.
And then curly brace team.
And then a curly brace team. All right. What do we think this is going to get, guys?
I'll do space after the dot as well, sorry.
Space after dot. Okay, I like that better.
And index plus 1.
Ah, thank you, Esteban. I've been a teacher for too long to miss that, Esteban. So hopefully now that will place inside of the text node, right? We're interested in the text, so that's the bit between our 2 tags. Index plus 1, because the index starts at 0. We don't want to start at 0. So it will convert that into the necessary number. Then a dot, then a space, and then the team name. Looks pretty good, I think. Any drawbacks? Anything we can spot that's not right?
When is that we need the dollar sign and when
No, you don't need it.
we don't need them?
Just the key thing for the elegance again. Yeah, I'm lazy. I'm going to leave it off for now. When do we need the dollar sign? Is what Seb just asked, right? So when would we need something like the dollar sign? Purely JavaScript, yep. So in other words, it would need to be inside of curly braces to say this is a bit of JavaScript. But when else do we use the dollar sign? Not HTML. There's only one instance I can think of in modern JavaScript that we use the dollar sign. In backticks, in template literals, right? So like that would be equivalent, I think. Yeah. So it's the same thing, apart from my indentation. But we don't need it in this case, Seb, right? Because we're already inside of a HTML tag, so it already assumes that it's text.
Ah, alright.
So we only need the dollar symbol when we're using a template literal to create text in JavaScript. As it's already text, we can simply write it like that.
It's already text because we are inside a div.
Because we're inside a div or any HTML node that takes text, that allows text inside of it. So a button, yeah, a label, all of these things would automatically convert the values inside of it to text. Yeah.
And what does it stands for?
It, initial test. Yeah, it's just a way of writing our test. The format is IT, and then the first argument is a description, and the second argument is the function that is the test, essentially. Alright, so this is just testing syntax. If you write a test on the platform, this is the format you're going to have to follow.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about TDD, test-driven development, but this is essentially it. You would write this on the left-hand side first, and then you would write your component or your function. That way round. You write the test before you write your code. And the test will tell you whether your code meets your expectations, right? Does what you want it to do. Cool. I wanted to look at least one intermediate one, because one, there's it doesn't matter about the question. Even if we can't write the code, I want to be able to understand what it's asking of us. Yeah, that's the main aspect, the main aim of this session. And also, if we do get to write the code, then we can see the AND operator in action in React. All right, let me leave this one. I'm going to choose buttons. Should we go for hooks? Why not? Extra practice. If I want to use hooks, is that okay, class? No, let's change it to a function. What else do I have to change?
The React environment.
So, don't need all of that. What do I need instead? Some brackets to pass in anything that I need to pass in. Cool. What does it look... Well, okay, a function, we want to return something, yeah? So I'm going to write that bit first. And what does it look like we need to return? What needs to be inside our component? A string? Let's just do the actual elements first. Yeah, I can clearly see there's a find button and there's a find label. So that means I need two things inside. I need a button, right? And I need... So some of you ask about the approach to questions. So this is my approach as well, right? I'd see what I need inside my component first, set up the structure, and then get the specific code afterwards. If I've got two elements, will React let me return two elements adjacently like that?
No.
No, so what can I do to fix that?
Fragment.
Fragment. Let's have a modern fragment. Why not? And then we're indent, indent, and close my fragment. Nice. My return, why not? Let's give it semicolons. Good for elegance. So we've set up our component now. We at least know it's got the correct form. Yeah, we've got a functional component. It's returning two elements, so we know the find method is going to work. It's going to find a button. It's going to find a label. Fantastic. Next, well, our first scenario, we expect get press me button dot text. What was get press me button? It's just the button element, right? So we've assigned it to wrapper dot find button. Wrapper is the whole component in this case. Yeah, we can see that from this. The shallow rendering of press me has been assigned to wrapper. Yeah, get press me button is just the button, and get message in this case is the label. Yeah, they're just the names we've given them in our tests. We could call them anything we want. So we expect the text inside to equal press me. So we could do that, but if we look a bit further down, well, hold on, let's do it for both things, and then I'll show you the limitation, right? So we also expected the text inside the label to equal button not pressed yet. However, we've then got an event. So all events in the tests are going to have this, simulate. Right? That shows that an event has been set up. What type of event? Click. Yep. You might see change in there. These are the most common ones on the platform, right? Click and change. You might even see focus. Yeah, all of these are triggering some sort of an event that we can set up an event listener and an event handler in React. And then it looks like further down, when that happens, the value changes. The value of the label changes, right? How do I know it's not the button? Yeah, because nothing's changed on get press button, only get message has changed. Yeah? So this label is a dynamic value. It changes. if something in our application changes, what do we often need to use? Not props. Props are immutable. They can only change in the parent and get passed down. Someone else said it, state, right? State is what we use when we expect something to change. How do I set up state in a functional component?
New state. So because equals.
Not a constructor. No, I'm not in a class component. I'm in a functional component, so I want to use hooks. So I do not use a constructor. I assign a variable, and I actually assign two variables. That's why I'm using this array syntax, right? This is assigning two variables at once, and it's assigning two variables from the elements of an array. I'll come back to that in a second. So the first value is the variable that we want to store the data that changes inside. So this is the bit that's changing, right? So instead of hard coding it, I'm going to call it message. Is that alright?
Okay.
Or label message, what would you prefer?
Message.
Message is alright. So the first variable name, I always like to copy and paste them so I don't type them wrong. It's going to be message. And the second variable name, the convention is to call it set, and then the thing that we're setting.
Message.
Yep, so rather than set state, which was the generic one from class-based methods, we're now setting the message. Okay?
So we have the message and then we use the message.
Yeah, and the syntax is we put it equal to the result of calling use state and calling use state with an initial value. What do I want my initial value of message to be? No, we've already got press me. That was for the button.
Not
Oh yeah, sorry.
button.
Yeah, we need this one. Button not pressed yet. And we need that as a string. Have we got enough room? I'm not sure because I've zoomed out. Let's have a look. Lost my line. It won't tell me. Alright. Let's leave it like that for now. Yeah, so the use state method, when you call it with the initial value, will return an array, which is why we use array syntax here. It returns an array with two elements essentially, right? We set array element index 0 to the variable message, and we set array index variable 1 to set message. That's what we've used here. This is array destructuring syntax. We'll talk about object and array destructuring later in the week. But all of that is the same as using your constructor and then not quite using your set state method, but it's halfway there to using your set state method as well. Okay. So I think we're up to here now. And in fact, let's run it and see whether we can get some feedback, because we haven't done these last two things yet, but let's see whether we at least get some feedback. Syntax error unexpected token on 3.4. So somehow I've lost my return, right? Where did my return go? I know I put one earlier, but for some reason I've lost that, so let me put it back. That looks better. Let's try again. Okay. So now, it doesn't fail here because this is under the when. Yeah, so that's done for us. We don't have to set a click event to pass this test. It's being simulated for us. But of course, when it does get simulated, nothing changed. So that's why this last line has failed. So what do you think we need to do?
We're missing the message that will be displayed when we click.
Yeah, so how are we going to set a new message?
So the
So that's the question. How do we update the state, right? We've set this method here called setMessage that can change our message. So in other words, we need to invoke setMessage and pass it the new value. Yeah, but how are we going to do that? Using a life cycle hook. I don't really like the term life cycle hook, to be honest, because to me life cycle methods are class based and then hooks are hooks. So no, we don't even need use effect, although
That is like a life cycle, isn't it?
it mimics an old life cycle method, yeah. But I wouldn't use effects because it's telling us to simulate something down here, and we haven't simulated it yet. We haven't written the code to do it yet, have we? Click. Again, we'll talk about these later in the week, but click event, yeah? Yeah, it's an on-click. What do we add the on-click event to? What was, yeah, get press me button, right, was our button element.
Oh, just put on click, capital C, move the button.
So we add on-click in there. Inside of that, we are going to call setMessage, and we're going to pass it the value that we want. See if I can make this a little bit more readable. Sort of. Not great, but you can at least see it on the page. So on the click event, we call setMessage. There's a couple of things wrong with it so far. Can anyone spot them? Line 7. What's wrong?
The code.
Yeah, so at the moment we're trying to pass in 3 variables. One called button, already, and pressed. Yeah, 3. So let's turn it into a string. What else? You might not know this, but how event handlers work in React, we pass them as callbacks. Yeah, we don't just invoke it straight away, so we need to have this as a function. Yeah, so we need to do that.
Wait, on-click is a function, and the on-click calls a function.
Yep. Put on-click equal to a callback. Yeah. And that callback function invokes setMessage. So then every time that button is clicked, it will run this inner function. Yeah. And that should now be it, right? On the click event, we're changing the message. Let's see if it works. It does. Just missed one semicolon.
Right, yeah.
Right up the set state. What's that?
Hooks is easy to
Yeah, for me, hooks is a lot easier than writing that with a class. Yeah.
When you do a couple of times, you'll get to have a mess up.
Yep. We just needed to do line 2, and then that bit in the callback. And that was the same as writing a constructor, calling super, setting the initial state, then again calling this dot set state, and all those sorts of things as well. And also we'd have to reference message as this dot state dot message, all of those extra things, right, that you have to remember for class-based components. I sense a question coming, Seb, or just some confusion. Yeah? But the main thing is working out what this left-hand side is doing, right? Even if you didn't understand this code, yeah, you can clearly see that we needed 2 elements, a button and a label, what the text was. There was a click event, and the text changed, so that's why we set up some state. Does that flow start to make sense for these React questions?
Yeah.
Yeah? One more, or leave it there?
That's right.
leave it there.
I think one more.
One more for Ed. Anyone else? One more?
Yeah, because also I think I need to understand how to read those statements. You just said those enzyme something.
Yep. So a lot of these are based on the enzyme testing framework, and some of them will come from. Ooh, where are they coming from now? Jest, right? Which is built into your Create React app. That's what. Go on.
How do you read it? That's the problem.
What? How do I read this stuff on the left-hand side?
Yeah, as in all those, how do you interpret it properly?
Say once more, Ed. I couldn't quite hear you.
How do you read the questions with the the enzyme statements or syntax?
Yeah, so that's what I've just attempted to explain, right? I've said that we're shallow rendering a press me component. Inside that component, we're finding a button element, and we're also finding a label element, which is why we created both a button element here and a label element here. Then this refers to the button because we've aliased it up here. We want the text inside of it to equal press me, which is why we put the text inside of it equal to press me. The text inside of the label, initially we wanted to be button not pressed yet, and then when we click the button we expect the message to change to button already pressed. Yeah, that is how I would read it.
Alright.
And
You could try another example maybe.
one more example, yeah, on different topic or any preference, guys in the room?
Maybe prop.
Props, I don't think we've got intermediate props. We've got a state, input, button, lists. Let's not do lists again, or composing components. Composing components. Yep. First question, Faraj, or anyone? Say again. First is good. Yeah. Okay. All right. So line 1. What does that mean? Yeah, so it's just saying mount the component, right? Which is
Oh, yeah, I can tell you. It's calling, you need the capital Western player is component. We're calling it a component.
yeah, you're essentially rendering a component again, right? And storing that in memory. Where do we store it in memory? In the wrapper variable, yeah? Next bit. We're using our wrapper, which is our component. What are we looking for?
And then
Name, but name is capital letter, so what are we looking for? We're looking for a component called name.
he
Yep.
knows and he's quiet.
Huh?
He knows and he's going quiet.
And we store that in the name variable for later. Next line, what does that do?
Another component.
So we're looking for another component, so we're going to have to create both of these components, right? They don't seem to be here at the moment. So we would have to create each of these. Whoops, make sure it's capital. Count on shift, make sure it's capital. Yep, so we've got a function name. And we've got a function of position. Yep, so they're good enough for now. We obviously need to do something with them later. Expect wrapper.state.name to equal. Say again?
I'm just trying to read what it says there for Jira
Yeah, so what is it referring to then? Wrapper.state.name. What do you think? It's referring to which component? We've got 3 now.
the name component, sorry.
The name component? I disagree.
Do we need to set up set state, the user state?
Let's just work out for everyone what it's asking first, Ahmed, before we do any code, yeah? What is this line asking?
For the container.
The wrapper is this one, right?
Yeah.
So we need some state. on Captain Tsubasa. And we need dot name. So does that refer to this name? No. It refers to a variable in the state called name.
That's confusing.
It's confusing, but it's what we need, right? So we would have to go constructor and then super and then this dot state equals an object, and it's going to have a name property that equals this, and it's going to have what else?
Position.
Position, fantastic. Where did you get that from? The line underneath, yeah. Same thing, right? Wrapper, Captain Tsubasa, state, this dot state, position, well let's put position in there, and equals forward as text. Cool. I'm happy that we've done up to there at least now. Now, name.props.name. What does that refer to? So the name component, yeah, is what we gave name. The state in there?
How can you tell we are talking about this name and not that name?
Just where it's used, Seb, because name here is chained onto the state object. Right? This is a method state which accesses the state object, and then you've chained on name, so that name must be inside. This name, there's nothing in front of it, so therefore it refers to our name variable, which is our name component, which is an alias for our name component. Yeah? So essentially, somewhere, because it's a class-based component, we're going to need to render and return something, and we need to, I've got to use class-based at the moment just because of this testing state method, yeah, that is looking specifically for something in a class-based component, unfortunately. I've tried it with hooks and we need to rewrite the test to account for how hooks store state. Yeah, so for now I've got to go class-based. Right, so at some stage I'm going to need to render my name component, and I'm also going to need to render my position component, I believe, yeah? And name.props means we need this component to have some props. The prop is called name, and that needs to equal Kojiro Hayuka, however you say it. Japanese is not my forte. And where do I get that name from? Do I just type it in again? Huh? Get it from the state, yep. So that if it changes, then that will update my components. We've got some nice design patterns going on here, right? This is why it's in composing components. So this dot state dot name, all right, and that will access this text and put it inside of the name prop that belongs to the name component. Whew. Head blowing up yet, Seb? Close?
I think the way you explained it in terms of the flow, it's great.
I'm trying, yeah. It's not easy stuff, right? So I'm not expecting you to get it first time, but hopefully this flow is helping a little bit better. We've managed to get up to this line. Name.text. Where's name.text going to be?
I'll have the result.
So does that mean I need some text in here between a name component? Kelly's shaking her head, which I'm very glad about. Thank you, Kelly. Where does it go?
Inside the name component.
Inside the name component. Yeah, because name is the name component. And then we need some text. So it doesn't really matter what I put it inside, but
I can see that the name that you're using is not only this information we're supposed to get as a dynamic, right?
what's dynamic?
There, where it says name text equal to name that you're using, so you need to get the name from there.
Yeah, it needs to be dynamic, definitely. But I think we can hard code at least name. But then the next bit I want to be dynamic.
Isn't it the same as line 11?
Isn't it the same as line 11? Well, it's coming from this, definitely. So how do I access that inside of my name component? Yeah, this is a prop, right? We pass data now down from Captain Tsubasa component to the name component. So I can access it via props dot name. Fantastic. One more thing I need to do. Inside the brackets, I need to make sure we can access props. Yeah? I think that's good. And then essentially we need to just repeat the same thing, right? But for the other component.
If we put, instead of props, we put like curly brackets and name.
Sorry, what's your question, Bilal? If
on line 18, if we put curly brackets and name,
oh, yep,
it will work. You're right.
absolutely. So Bilal's saying we can destructure name, and that will enable us to remove props and just have name there. So that's neater. Yeah, I like that a lot. But when you're learning, if you don't destructure, that's fine. Yeah. So we need to do the same thing for position, and that comes from position in the state, and then we can do the same thing. Where's my did I not create a position component? Is it just off the screen? Weird. I'm gonna have to zoom out. It wouldn't let me show it otherwise.
No.
It's there now.
Right side. Scroll on the right side.
Yeah, but it wouldn't let me scroll. That was the issue, right? So I was zoomed in and it wouldn't let me scroll any further. For some reason, the Elegance console was blocking. So we can do the same thing. And we can destructure position. And we've reached the end of our expectations. So, did we manage to meet them all?
Yes.
Anyone spot any mistakes as we were going through? Any semicolons anywhere needed?
So then about the functions, the two bottom functions.
The two bottom functions, semicolon there? So it's saying, oh, in the return statement. Yep, nice. Indentation there. Okay, should we try it? Oh, didn't return anything. Oh look, adjacent JSX elements. Silly, right?
Yeah, I know what it is.
So how do we fix it? Let's go with the fragment again. Yeah, we've got two adjacent components and we didn't wrap them in any parent element. No, position is defined but never used. Yep, exactly. Position, like that. And then we're there. So we pretty much did it.
I have a question about this one. This is a class component. What are we doing with classes?
So at the moment, whenever you see this state method being called, you're going to have to use a class-based component. Yeah? It's something we need to fix and write a different test for so that we can use hooks in here. Yeah?
Right, when they react fragments of
Yeah.
which lift around the two adjacent elements, are you able to use like a div or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't have to be a fragment. If you wanted it to be a div, of course you could make it to be a div. Oh yeah, wrong place, right? Thanks. See, also works.
Well, the whole point of fragment is this is not good practice. Fragment is better.
It depends. If you want that div and you want to style it with the class name and add some CSS to it, then use the div. But if it's a div that is not needed and it's just going into the DOM for no reason, then yeah, use a fragment instead. All right. So you're going to ace the React challenge this afternoon. I've never seen 14 blank stares as that. Evil eyes you're giving me. Good. Or eyebrows raised in the case of some. Alright,
I just don't have to do the intermediate, I don't feel comfortable.
No, you can just do beginner, right? If you want to. Okay, leave it there. Thank you. It's a long one again. But we need to try and take the time over this stuff, yeah, because it's important to understand. Cool. All good, Ed?